Most people think 8-tracks are absolutely worthless, little plastic bricks that belong in a dusty box at a garage sale or a flea market. I love those categories, and hopefully this video is going to teach you just enough to know what to look for and not to waste a bunch of time, because you could end up pulling out an 8-track that's worth far more than a lot of vinyl records. Now, vinyl records are highly collected, highly sought after. There's a much smaller niche, but that provides us the opportunity to find an 8-track worth hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. Today, I'm going to break down the 10 most valuable and collectible types of 8-track tapes. I'll show you real specific examples that collectors are hunting for actively right now. And I'm going to try not to blow any smoke here. Let's be realistic. Most 8-tracks are worth virtually nothing, but that provides us with the opportunity to not miss out. I found an 8-track collection in a basement at a garage sale that they invited me into their home at, and I made thousands of dollars off of it over time. But look, there's going to be a lot of stuff out there condition-wise like this. This is a hard seller at $5. Even when you find titles like the Beatles here, this one's in such poor condition that this thing isn't worth $5. You will find sealed ones out there. Just because it's sealed does not mean it's worth money. This one I found, I think it was a freebie at a sale, and I have it listed for right around $10. The Allman Brothers sealed. This one was kind of cool. I couldn't pass it up. It's a Tanya Tucker one, but it was sealed. I think it's listed around the same. But I have found certain 8-tracks that have brought me into the hundreds of dollars. I'm still waiting to find those holy grails out there, and we're going to talk about those today. And most of them are just easily passable. You don't need to deal with them. They're in poor condition. They're not high value. But man, I bought out a collection of 8-tracks, and I would say 70% of those were not worth selling on their own. And about 20 to 25% of those were worth selling as singles, and I lotted a bunch of them up and did okay on them. But man, I found 4 or 5 great ones in there that paid for absolutely everything and put me in the profit. Much like the LP category and the vinyl categories out there, they are very hard to pinpoint, say, an actual top 10 list of find these 10 records. There are some holy grails out there, and we will mention them today, but we're going to look at ranking categories, the top 10 things, and then specific ones in each category that you can look for to save yourself some time. It might surprise some people that the little compacted cassette tape, the one that we're used to, at least in my age group, you know, I'm 48 years old presently, that was actually created a little bit before the 8-track, which is kind of crazy when you look at the two of them. But the 8-track had a better sound quality, which blows my mind today because I throw in some of these old 8-tracks and they sound terrible. But as far as the music goes on those 8-tracks, there were literally 8 tracks. There was actually 4 tracks before that, and then it moves into the 8-track age. We're also going to talk about the quadraphonics today and what makes them stand out. But from the mid-60s till 1988, that should be a surprising date, and it should tell us some things. Just like when we talk about VHS, there's a certain category of VHS that are going to be produced after the time period where DVDs are produced. And the same thing here is going to apply when we're talking about 8-tracks. Once the cassette tape comes out in full bore, you're going to see a drop-off in production, and it provides a little bit of value, quite a bit of value in some cases, in the mid to late 80s. So a little context to give you some reference points when you're out there looking. 1965, the 8-track is produced mostly because of the automobile, because you wanted something that was portable. You're not going to put a record player in an automobile, and that gives rise to the peak popularity from 1975 to 1978. 1982 to 1983, retail is going to be phased out, and in 1988, you're going to see the last mail-in 8-tracks being sold. So like I said, 1965, the 8-track is starting to be produced, but in 1971 to say 1976, they're going to start to produce the quadraphonic 8-track, and that was the only time period they produced it. You had to have a special system in order to play it, and those are going to be limited and highly collectible. So before we start our list here in just a second, I can't let an 8-track video go by and not talk about the 8-track player for just a second. I have made a lot of money over the years on 8-tracks. I've probably wasted a little bit of time because I love finding them so much. Finding that holy grail, I'm a treasure hunter at heart. But the 8-track players, I have made a bunch of money. Matter of fact, in that one buyout that I was talking about, there were 2 8-track players that ended up selling for over $300, and I had 3 or 4 that were selling for $50 to $100 range. But I have my specific special ones that are easy to identify, hard to miss out there if you're looking for them at garage sales. I'm going to mention those really quick and show you some pictures. I have found many power sound loudmouths over the years, and surprisingly, most of them have worked for me. And you can get $100 for those. A lot of times these portable ones come in different colors. There's some black standard ones as well that GE puts out. One of my favorite ones to find, and I've found it twice, is the Panasonic. They call it the Swiss cheese portable one, and those can bring good money. I have only found one of the Weltron Spaceball ones. Those are cool. I think you could see those in the Brady Bunch videos, if you remember those back in the day. I don't know if I can find a picture of that, but I can certainly find a picture of that 8-track. I have found one of those, and it sold pretty quick. I have found multiple brand new sealed 8-track players for under the dash, and I have found at least, I don't know, at least 2 of those, maybe 3, and those sold quickly for me as well. I think I got around $150 for them. Even the realistic ones and the Sears ones, the portables, those go for okay money if you can find them in working condition. And if you find the high name brand ones out there that would be inside the house on a desk or a tabletop, like Marantz or a Kai, those can go for good money as well. The design of those, how they look on the outside, and if they're working, of course, can really determine the value from hundreds to multiple hundreds of dollars. The one I have never found and I have always wanted to find, and I know it's findable because I see them all the time for sale on eBay, is the Quadraphonic carousel, where you could put 12 different 8-tracks in it and it would play them all. It's crazy. So before I start this top 10, let me do 2 more things really quick. First of all, I'm no expert on this. I'm a novice. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none, but I like to know enough about a category to be dangerous when I'm out there at garage sales and treasure hunting, so I can pass these things on to the collectors who want them and would be devastated by the fact that a lot of these things get thrown away in the garbage because people think they are absolutely worthless. And yes, some of them are worthless. But I'm asking for some help in the comments as well, for those of you who are collectors, for those of you out there who know more than me, to add on to this video and to help the people who are watching it even more. And of course, I want to promote dibdit.com. Y'all come over and join us on dibdit.com. It is a collector's paradise. We would love to have you over there. If you are a collector, you can find the absolute best deals on this marketplace. And it is owned by me and 2 other gentlemen that I work with, and come on over. It's a great place with great people, like-minded folks, and you can find some amazing stuff. Dibdit.com. Number 10. We're looking at categories. I could give you a list of like the 10 most valuable ones that have sold in the last 5 years or something like that, but inevitably it's not going to be a complete list, and there's going to be issues with it because some of these 8-tracks are absolutely hard to find. And so you might not even see one out there that could be worth the most in the last 5 years and have a trackable, realistic, and dependable sold comp for it. And a lot of these in the upper atmosphere of the 8-tracks are going to be, you know, things that are signed by the artists themselves, of course, sealed ones, which we're going to talk about through the top 10 here. And they're just not going to be findable for most folks out there. So we're going to look at categories and give examples in each category. Number 10, the late era Columbia House mainstream rock, where they are still producing it, but not in high numbers because the cassette tape has really come in and taken over that marketplace. So the typical stuff you might see, if it is new, sealed, in very good condition, maybe just in good condition, perfect condition, workable, playable, doesn't need repairs. Although these things can be repaired, and you collectors out there know how to do it. I don't. I sell everything as is, and it's going to go for a lesser amount. But if you can find these late era Columbia House mainstream rock, mostly rock, 8-tracks out there, like Rumors from Fleetwood Mac, or Hotel California, or Back in Black, The Long Run. If you can find those out there, you can make some decent money. Some of those can go in the range of $100 to $150 easily if they're brand new and sealed. If they're not, you can still expect to get a pretty decent return, especially if the cover art is good. All right, very similar here, 1984 to 1987. Remember, anything after 1983, you are going to find very low production. Matter of fact, a lot of these companies would have contracts where it was in the contract that they had to produce in these different formats. And so to fulfill the contractual obligation, they're producing them even though very few people are buying them. So they're producing them in low numbers, of course, so not to lose money. But that means there's a rarity out there. So let me give you some examples. Born in the USA. And of course, all of this goes with something in mind here. We're talking, for the most part, when we're looking at these top values here, with brand new sealed 8-tracks. And don't think you can't find them. I've found dozens of highly valuable, maybe not highly valuable, but 25 to I think 250 is the highest one I've ever sold. But there are tons of them out there, and you can look them up on the different sites that go for really, really good money. Born in the USA, if you can find it new and sealed, even if it's not new and sealed, but it is in flawless condition, stored in a great area in somebody's basement or something, and it's in perfect shape. True Blue, Like a Virgin. Did you know Madonna had quite a few 8-tracks that came out? Purple Rain can go for good money as well. I'm going to add Kiss into this one. Now, Kiss is pretty unique in the era that they started and grew in popularity and lasted a long time. So in this era, you're going to see some Kiss stuff come out as well. However, I want to say 1976 debut album. That one can go for quite a bit of money, especially if you can find it new and sealed. So I'm going to put Kiss in this category as well, even though it spans a pretty long time period with high production and then later low production. You could even put U2 in that number 9 slot as well. U2, I would have never thought had an 8-track come out, but they certainly did, and that one can be worth a lot of money. There's also another one that comes out from Bruce Willis, of all people. I have sold this cassette tape, but not the 8-track cassette tape. And the Bruce Willis Bruno one can bring really big bucks. Let's go to number 8. This is obviously later in the time period, very low production, because we're talking about punk and new wave limited 8-track pressings. The Idiot, Lust for Life, Parallel Lines, Talking Heads. And these are hard to find because the production level was so low. And the time period and the people who like that music don't really identify with the 8-track era because they were so late. However, if you can find them, sometimes basically if you're just out there and you're like, I can't believe there's an 8-track of this, pick it up. All right, on to number 7, the classic rock of the early 1970s in the quadraphonic format has high collectability, and you can sell these, and sometimes they sell rather quickly. I have sold, I think, 3 quads over the years. They're not easy to find. However, if you're looking through a box of, say, 8-tracks, and you find a quad, let's talk about the quad right here really quick. We'll put a few images up here so you can see that notch right there will identify the quad. You'll see that these don't have it. They have that notch there, but they don't have this one. And you need that to put it into, I remember watching Bull Durham as a kid, and Ebby Calvin LaLouche was bragging about having a quadraphonic Blaupause.
I got a Porsche already. I got a 911 with a quadraphonic Blaupause. Christ, you don't need a quadraphonic Blaupause. What you need is a curveball.
That should give you an idea. They were higher end, and I'm not going to go into the detail about them, but they ran on 8 tracks. Just think about it this way. And this is my rudimentary knowledge of this. The stereo sound of the 8-track was supposedly better than the cassette tape, but what you have with the quad is not only do you have the stereo sound, you have the surround sound with an 8-track, essentially, is what you have. And those are going to be highly collectible. I suppose people still listen to them. I know there are collectors out there. Maybe you're one of them. You can tell us in the comments below. And you repair different things. I like to look inside, and a lot of times you'll even see mold and stuff and dust, and the pads have broken down. A lot of that can be fixed. For me, I'm looking at the cover art. I love the cover art. I mean, we can listen to music in all kinds of different formats, but for me, it's the display piece and the collectability that matters. But for a lot of people out there, they're actually still looking at these and listening to these still to this day. I find sealed blank 8-track cassettes quite often, actually, and I've probably sold a dozen or so over the years of those. They're not high value, but, you know, a lot of people think this stuff is worthless. So if you can get stuff bundled together for nothing or find an entire box full of sealed blank 8-tracks, I usually pick them up because you can sell them still. So still in the number 7 category here, these quadraphonic rock cassettes, rock 8-track cassettes, they can, I mean, it varies. All of this stuff varies absolutely on condition. Some of them can be worthless because they're just absolute trash. But you can get up into the $300, $400, $500, even $900 range. I've seen some quads over the years, although not lately, go into the thousands. There are tons of examples of, well, not tons, actually, but there are some examples of these out there. The one I have sold, we're going to mention a little bit later. Hotel California, Chicago 9, Best of the Doors. Some of these best ofs that you think are going to be worthless are actually worth pretty good money in this format. There are tons of examples. I'll hopefully put a few more on the screen right here that you can take a look at. And if you ever find the quads, just look for that notch. It's usually going to be a winner. If it is sealed, it is almost definitely going to be a big winner. At number 6, there are some hard to find double album 8-tracks out there that you can find. The Wall, Physical Graffiti, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road even, Tommy. And these double albums, while not easy to find, if you can find them in great condition or in sealed condition, can bring upwards of $400 to $1,000 at times. Many of them far, far less than that. We are going to give Pink Floyd their own category at number 5. The standard 8-track and the quad 8-track. If you find anything Pink Floyd out there, anything at all, no matter the color of the 8-track itself, whether it's black, purple, whatever it is, if the cover art is in great shape, if the 8-track is in great shape, it's going to be worth money. Period, end of story. If you can find the quads, if you can find any Pink Floyd out there, my suggestion is to pick it up. There are a lot of 8-tracks where they could be worth big bucks, but are actually worthless because of condition. Almost any Pink Floyd in almost any condition is going to be worth something and be worth picking up. Number 4, and I gotta be honest with you, this one is something I know nothing about and probably would miss these. Jazz and Jazz Fusion quadraphonic titles. I've got a few specific examples here, but I don't have very much as far as what I can show you as sold comps here. A lot of these are selling on sites that are not familiar to me, but Headhunters, Bitches Brew, Romantic Warrior, Spectrum. I know nothing about any of those. They're all quads, however, so if you just use that quad rule out there, you can find them. And there are some trackable solds out there for as much as $1,500. Number 3 is the toughest one for me. I had to dig and do a ton of research. Maybe y'all can help me out with this one. But there are supposedly, and I think there's some confirmation for some of this stuff, a lot of very late 80s alternative rock stuff. We've talked about U2 already, and I would put U2 in this alternative rock category. This stuff just seems so scarce out there that it's almost non-existent, and I don't even believe some of the accounts I've read in some of these collector chats, but I could be wrong on this. The Unforgettable Fire, for instance, U2, that one is supposedly out there. I just have not seen a record of sale for that one. And there may be some other bands. There's a lot of alternative rock bands that clearly do not have any footprint in the 8-track era. So maybe you can chime in there. But if you can find these, if they exist out there, I have no doubt that they are worth big, big bucks because you just don't see them coming to market. And I'm so obsessed with this, I'm doing more research as we do this because I really want to find one of these someday. It would be like, I would imagine, into thousands of dollars here. Promotional, number 2, promotional radio-only 8-tracks. And you might be able to fit that U2 one into this category. Let me read you about this one. Yes, U2's Unforgettable Fire album was released on 8-track, but it was a limited special release primarily through RCA Record Club in North America. And does not have widespread retail item, but a specific offering of Record Club members. And so a lot of this stuff fits into this, but there are a lot of radio-only white label promos that get put out. There's actually, believe it or not, some people, little indie things that come out and release 8-tracks even in the 2000s, but that's kind of, you're not going to find this stuff, I wouldn't think. Station stamped copies, advanced test issues, and these are like so rare that you can't find them sold, or it's difficult to find them. It's even difficult for me to put in different comps into these videos. But if you find something so rare out there that you can't find it anywhere, I would pick those up as well. They may be worth more than anything. And those little promo stickers that you find on different 8-tracks. If you can find something from a radio station or something like that, I would definitely pick them up. Right before I hit number 1 here, I want to just add a couple little additions to this so that people are out there and they see these, they pick them up. Soundtracks. If you can find the cross collectible, in other words, somebody who's not necessarily an 8-track collector, but they love Star Wars, for instance, you know, Empire Strikes Back, Indiana Jones. There are a bunch of these soundtracks. There are a bunch of these type of soundtracks out there that you can find sealed that collectors definitely want. Let me read you off a little list. Here's a good one, Smokey and the Bandit. That is in the right era. It is highly collectible if you can find it sealed. Of course, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Indiana Jones, Beverly Hills Cop, Miami Vice, Cocktail. Jaws, that's a decent one. There's ebbs and flows to the value of each of these depending on what's coming out in popular culture or remakes or reboots. What else do we have? Footloose is in here. MASH has one. There's all kinds. If you find sealed, any soundtrack sealed, I would pick it up. And of course, I really need to mention here, Black Sabbath, quite a resurgence here in Aussie 8-tracks out there. As you find those, you should pick those up as well, especially right now after Ozzy's death. You saw a big spike in the value of those. Duran Duran, the artwork on an 8-track should tell you quite a bit. If there are, Duran Duran had some very interesting artwork on all their albums, and they, of course, put them on the 8-tracks too. So there's all kinds of stuff we haven't mentioned here that common sense should tell you to pick up. Let's hit number 1, and 1, I'll just tell you from the get-go, is going to be a little bit different because these are so highly collectible that you're not seeing some of them come to market like you have in years past. So if you look, for instance, in eBay sold, you're not going to see the track record that you might think because collectors have been buying these up and keeping them, and there's such a limited amount out there that I would be curious to see if some of these did come to market in different major marketplaces, what they would go for. Number 1. And this is a strange number 1 in some senses because, like I said just a minute ago, when you look at the sold comps, for instance, on eBay, and there's people buying them on all kinds of marketplaces, the track record really recently isn't even what you saw 2 or 3 years ago. There's a limited amount of high-end 8-track collectors out there, and a lot of those folks want the very best. They just don't want to add something to their collection. And so you'll see these quads, all these sealed classic rock quads are very highly collectible. You can sell the quads. Like I said earlier, I've sold 2 or 3 of them myself. I've sold a Pink Floyd one, not in very good condition. But if you can find the sealed top of the line, the best condition, best examples of these sealed quadraphonic classic rock cassette tapes, 8-track cassette tapes, you're going to make a bunch of money. And I'm curious to see, some of them would possibly go definitely into the thousands, $2,000, maybe $3,000 for the most rare. I've got a couple of examples here that I want to talk about. Anything Pink Floyd, anything at all sealed quad, anything Pink Floyd period is definitely worth picking up. Dark Side of the Moon, in perfect condition, sealed. You can, man, I mean, you can almost name your price out there. Hotel California sealed quads. Here's an interesting one, and maybe you guys can tell me more about this. Brain salad surgery came up in my research quite a bit. I have not seen an example of a sealed quad of brain salad surgery. The regular 8-tracks for that one don't go for that much. So I'm just very curious, is this just like a unicorn out there that's on that list? Some of you add the ones that you have seen sold. Maybe you're a collector in different sites and you have seen some of these sealed ones go for crazy money. But I think for what you can actually find out there, you can find these quads. You can use your time wisely out at garage sales, estate sales, find that little notch out there, find the titles, find the artwork that works and the cross collectability of these, and you can find some money in 8-tracks, and it's easier in some senses than finding it in records because you see a ton of people going to those where most people just assume the value of an 8-track is worthless, which I said at the beginning, many of them, I would say 99% of the 8-tracks you pick up are barely worth picking up at all. But I love it because I love the treasure hunt. Thank y'all for stopping by. Commonwealth Collections, give us a subscribe below. We'd appreciate it. Don't forget to join us on dibdit.com, and I can't wait to see you next time.